Welcome back to another video about how to heal adoption and narcissistic abuse. If you are new to my channel, my name is Theodora. I work as a spiritual and psychological counselor, and I am an adoptee myself. In today's video, we're gonna talk about contacting the biological mother. I received this question from a follower of this YouTube channel that asked me to talk about this. And I think it's a great question, and I think it's a great topic to talk about. And when I was preparing this topic, I realized that there's so much to talk about, so much to talk about. And therefore, this video might end up being a little long. Maybe you have to rewatch it a few times because I'm gonna give you a lot of information. I'm going to divide it into 3 sections. First section is the adoptee. Second section is the biological mother. The third section is the adoptive parents. And then there's going to be some sub-themes that we're going to go through, like positive aspects of contacting the biological mother, and what are some of the challenges that we might face from the adoptive perspectives, from the biological mother's perspective, and from the adoptive parent's perspective. I think when we're talking about contacting the biological mother, we need to include the 3 parts that is the constellation of the adoption. For the adoption to take place, we need these 3 parts. And I want to start with the adoptee's perspective. And some of the positive aspects of wanting to contact a biological mother is that it can help us heal this disconnection, this separation, the loss that we experience when we're being separated from her. And many adopted people, they experience that after being separated from her as a very young child, maybe as an infant, they never got the chance to repair this separation because it happened before they were able to have any sort of inner reflection, because their brain was simply too undeveloped at that point. Another really positive aspect of contacting the biological mother, meeting her, is that you get this genetic mirroring, you get this physical mirroring. She can mirror back to you who you look like. And this is something that's so existential for so many people. I think this is one of the areas where non-adopted people, they can't fathom what it feels like to grow up in a family that you don't look like physically. They can't fathom that. And I think a lot of people in general, they take it for granted that they look like their parents, they look like their uncle, they look like their aunt, they look like their sister and their brothers. They take it for granted. And it's not because there's something wrong with that. It's just to say that for an adopted person, this is very important. And just because the outer surroundings doesn't get you, doesn't mean that this is very important for us in order to develop a healthy sense of self. So if you are in a position where you are able to contact your biological mother, able to meet her, you might experience that you get some kind of peace in that area, because you can see that the nose that you got is from her, or that the hair color you inherit is from her, or that you have some of the same hobbies or interests as her. And this is something you might have experienced in your adoptive family that you just couldn't share with them. I mean, the more we don't look like adoptive parents, the more visible it becomes. And the more we look like our adoptive parents, if we are the same ways, or what you want to call it, if we are born from the same country, then the differences is more invisible, but it doesn't change that they then are less painful. I can say that for my own life, being same ways adopted. I was adopted into a white family, and I experienced very much that I did not look like them and that I couldn't recognize, like, where did I get my hair color from, my eyes, my teeth, and all that stuff. And I didn't found out until I met my older brothers and I met the rest of my biological family. They helped me understand why I look the way I look. And that was very, very reassuring for me. And it gave me a lot of peace and a lot of healing in that area. No matter what skin color you have, no matter what eye color you have, no matter how big your ears are, being mirrored by those people who gave birth to you, who created you, can be very, very healing for us. Especially also if we look at the whole aspect of finding out who are we. And the last thing about this genetic mirroring is that I think it also adds to this general feeling of being this fluttering soul that perhaps feel like you're pretending to be someone when inside you feel like nothing, you feel like no one, because you couldn't, being mirrored when you grew up, you couldn't recognize the way you look in the other people in your adoptive family. And so it can be healing on a deeper level that we might not be aware of until we're experiencing it. Another positive aspect about being reunited with your biological mother is that you get to hear her version of the story. You get to understand how it felt like for her to give you up for adoption, no matter what the reason is, because there can be so many reasons. You can have been stolen, sold, you can have been left on the street and then an orphanage picked you up. Maybe your parents gave you up freely to be adopted because they want a better future for you. There can be so many reasons. Or maybe you were taken against their will, like we do in Denmark, which is unfortunately legal, that the state can come and take your baby if they think that you are not qualified enough to be a good parent, and then they can place your child up for adoption. So there can be so many reasons why you're being placed for adoption. And I think no matter what, we as humans, especially adopted people, we need the truth, because the truth sets us free. It sets us free. And I don't even know how to explain this well enough for you guys, because the language is too poor to explain the importance of the power that words have when we are told the true story. One aspect that I really like about being told the true story is that we can then take elements from the true story and we can rewrite our story, the story that we might have been told when we grew up. Maybe we were told the true story from the beginning, maybe we were not told the true story, and maybe our adoptive parents were not given the true story from whoever they adopted you from. So they just told that story to you, or maybe the adoptive parents came up with a very wrong story in order to put themselves in a better light. We don't know that. I definitely don't know that. I'm just saying there's a lot of possibilities. But no matter what, words hold such a huge power. Words are frequencies, they are energy. And the more we can be told the true story, the more we can release all these blockages that we are storing within our energy system. And maybe you're thinking, but what if the true story is horrible? That is actually maybe the most liberating story to be told, because when we are told the true story, we are not really distinguishing between how horrible is it, because the fact that it's the truth, that's what gives it the weight and the meaning that we're looking for in order to set ourselves free from whatever illusionary prison we have been placed in when growing up as adopted people in strange families. This can be amazing to know the true story. It can be extremely liberating to understand the true story. I have heard adopted people share with me some very, very uncomfortable stories about their mother being raped, or that their mother was a prostitute and that's why they were given up for adoption. But it didn't change how they felt about all of it in a negative way. It actually liberated them. No matter how brutal it was, what they were told, it actually liberated them. And I want to add, before I move on, that there are scenarios where adopted people are told the true story and they might not be ready to hear it, and then they are actually projecting it, they're rejecting it. And they can also experience, if they're not ready to hear the true story, that it can actually get stuck within them, and it can actually become almost like a re-traumatizing experience, because they don't know how to deal with the reaction after hearing the story of what actually happened. So no matter what, I think it's very important to make sure that you're ready to hear the story, and that knowing that the story will set you free in one way or the other. We deserve the whole story. We deserve the true story. We should have been told the true story from the beginning. And it seems insane that I'm sitting here saying that you need the true story of what happened with you. But unfortunately, this is the reality for a lot of adopted people. So when that has been said, I'm gonna move on to some of the more challenging aspects of contacting the biological mother. Some of the aspects is around fear, and that might not be a surprise. There's a lot of fear that can arise when we are considering contacting the adoptive mother, our mother. And some of the fear can be that we're afraid that we're going to be rejected. I think that's a very common and it's a very dominant fear that a lot of adopted people can experience, that we're afraid that we're going to be rejected by her because we have already experienced it, haven't we? And that was not very, very fun experience. So it sits with us when we are considering contacting her. It sits with us what happened back then. And it can actually stop us from contacting her. I have met adopted people that never contacted their biological mother because the fear of being rejected one more time was worse than finding out that she actually wanted to be in contact with them. So if you are finding yourself at this stage, in this position, I want you to really sit with that fear, because it's not all, it's not the whole truth, this fear. The fear is not a complete reflection of the reality, right? It's a past experience that's coming up that wants to protect you from going through that horrific traumatic experience it was to be separated from her the first time. But you're not guaranteed that it's going to happen again. And your fear and your thoughts can definitely not predict the future. They're not qualified to do that. They have never been able to do that. They are so sure they can, and they want to convince your brain that they can, but they can't. If you are here, you can write a list where you write down what's the worst thing that could happen. And then next to that list, you write down what is the best thing that could happen if you contacted your biological mother. If you just allow yourself to imagine the best possible outcome of taking action and contacting her. And when you have that list of those two, for and against, ask yourself if you will regret it, if you allowed your fear to take over and not let you have the best possible experience that you're imagining. Would you regret that? Because if you feel like you would regret it, you're gonna kill that fear, and then you're gonna go and contact your biological mother. Another fear is that we can be afraid that we might not feel anything when we contact her or when we meet her, that we might not feel any connection with her. That can be a very real fear as well. And a lot of adopted people have experienced this, that they didn't feel anything. There can be so many reasons to this. Some of them can be that, well, if you contact your biological mother when you are an adult, you have perhaps lived a whole life without being in contact with her. So you haven't seen her for a lot of years, maybe decades, maybe 3, 4, 5 decades. You haven't seen this woman. We can't expect that we're just gonna pick up from where we left when it's been that many years. We need to allow ourselves to meet each other in a new way, in new circumstances, with new thoughts, with an open approach to who this woman has become, because she's, again, also older and you are older. She's not that mother with that age when she gave birth to you. She might be 10, 20, 30, 40 years older now, and she has lived a whole life through that time and done a lot of other things after she gave birth to you that will develop her and change her and make her become a new version of herself. So it might not be the same woman as you remember her. And the same goes for her, but I'm gonna come to that after we're done talking about you. Then we're gonna talk about the biological mother. I think my point with this challenge is for you to be realistic about what expectations you have, and that you can be a little bit more soft with your expectations, so they're not so firm that it has to look this way, because that's most likely not going to happen. It's most likely not going to happen. And then you will get disappointed. Then you have set yourself up for disappointment. And you have also set her up for disappointment, because she has no idea what you're expecting from her. So how can she live up to something she has no idea she is supposed to live up to? Lower your expectations. Just sink down a little bit. And then just say, I'm just gonna go contact her, see what comes with it, and then I'm gonna take it from there. And I know I'm explaining it like it's just very easy, and it's not. I know it's not, because we're talking about fundamental emotions that are attached to taking action and contacting her. Before I move on, the last thing that I want to talk about in regards to the challenges for the adoptee is, what if she doesn't reply? If you contact her, like on social media, or you call her, or you send her a letter, what if she does not reply? What if she doesn't pick up the phone? What if she doesn't reply to your email, your message on Facebook? or the letter you sent her. What then? I can't tell you why she's not replying to you, but we must assume that she has her reasons, and that those reasons most likely have nothing to do with you. I'm gonna go, when we're moving on to talk about the biological mother, I hope you'll understand this a little bit better, because there's so much that can help us understand why she might not respond to you. But I just hope that you know it might not have anything to do with you. She can be filled with so much guilt and so much shame that she can't take action and reply to you, because she feels like she has failed so much as a mother, and that she has let you down so much, and that she can't even look you in the eyes and tell you that she's sorry, because she's so ashamed of herself. Or there can be so many other reasons. This was just an example that came to my head right now, so it's not that this is the common reason at all. I hope it makes sense, and I hope it makes more sense when we're moving on to her, because we're gonna do that now. Before we move on, I actually forgot to say that if she really doesn't reply to you, like in years, or if she replies and rejects you directly and says, I don't want to have anything to do with you, you're a mistake, I just want to forget you, then my absolute best advice to you is to allow yourself to completely surrender to whatever emotion that this is activating within you. No matter how painful it is, don't suppress it. Allow it to be felt fully. If you, for some reason, don't feel like you can do that, then do it in small steps. But most importantly, understand that whatever emotions that this will activate within you is okay. You just got rejected for the second time by your biological mother. And that fucking hurts. And you have every right to be sad, angry, frustrated, whatever you want to feel. You have every right to do that. So just give yourself that, to allow yourself to feel it. I think that is really, really important. And then we're going to move on to the biological mother now. The biological mother, there can be a lot of positive aspects for her to be in contact with you, to maybe she's the one who's reaching out to you, she's looking for you and she's trying to find you, or maybe you are the one who's contacting her and reaching out to her. It can go both ways, because again, as I said earlier, there can be multiple reasons for why you were separated from her in the first place and you applied for adoption. We have heard a lot of stories about children being taken from their parents on the street when they were out playing or on their way to school in a lot of the countries in Asia, where the children were sold basically to rich families in the United States and also to Denmark, unfortunately. And the biological parents, they're looking for their children. They're really looking for them, and they're looking for them for the rest of their life. And we can experience that they are contacting us. And now we can get into so many scenarios, because one scenario could be that they reach out to us before we have decided whether we want to be in contact with them or not. And that can be extremely overwhelming to experience that they want to be in contact with us. They want to be reunited with us. They want to make up for all the lost years and everything that that we didn't get to experience with them. But what if we're not ready for that? How do we deal with being in that position and not being ready for that? I think the best thing we can do here is to be completely honest with ourselves. Completely honest. Don't think about, will I hurt their feelings? Will I hurt my adoptive parents' feelings? Will I hurt whoever? Just think about yourself. Tune in with yourself. What do you feel in this moment? What do you need in this moment? What do you want right now after they have contacted you? And whatever that is, trust that. Trust that 100%. I know that you might be overwhelmed by this fear of letting them down, hurting them, all that stuff. But in the end, you are hurting yourself more by not listening to what you need in this moment. Just because someone is contacting you doesn't mean that you're obligated to reply to them. And that doesn't matter if it's your biological family or if it's God or the American president. It doesn't matter. We are free people, we're free souls, and we can do whatever we want with our life. We can be in contact with whoever we want to be in contact with, if they want to be in contact with us as well. If we don't want to be in contact with someone, we are completely free to just say no. We might not grow up with that belief that we are free to say no, but we are. Deep inside, you know that you're free to do that. So we have actually been moving a little bit away from the biological mother. I realize that now, because there's so much to talk about in this regards. Let's go back a little bit to the biological mother. Now we just covered if she's the one reaching out to you. So let's zoom in on the mother now and imagine that you are contacting her. What will happen is that she might not know if she's ready to reply to you because, as I said, she can be filled with so much shame and guilt and feeling like the worst mother in the world and have no idea how to overcome these feelings, as she get completely paralyzed because maybe she grew up in a cult or a very religious community and they brainwashed her and forced her to give a child up for adoption. Or maybe she left you on the street because she was that poor and that she had nothing to offer you and that she couldn't even find food for herself, and that's why she gave you up for adoption, or that she left you on the doorstep of an orphanage. So many reasons. Some of the positive aspects that the biological mother can experience is the same for the adoptee, but from her perspective, she also gets to repair what was broken or what was damaged. I wouldn't say broken, but what was damaged. She gets to repair that lost connection she had with you. And she definitely also gets to express the true story of why you were placed for adoption in the first place. And that can be extremely liberating for her because maybe she have held on to that for her whole life. And maybe it's her biggest wish to give that story to you, to tell that story to you, because she also knows very well that the truth holds the biggest power and that the truth will set both of you free. And maybe she also feels like you deserve to know the truth. So maybe that can also be a reason for her to look for you, search for you, hoping that you will find her and that you will contact her. And maybe if she's not the one who's contacting you and you are the first one to contact her, it can also be because she's simply too scared that you will reject her. We have heard a lot of stories about children rejecting their parents and that this is very, very painful. And so she can walk around being so afraid of that, and that can make her hesitate with contacting you, but it doesn't mean that she doesn't want to contact you. She's simply just very, very anxious and too afraid of what if you reject her. There's also the scenario that she simply just doesn't want to have anything to do with you. That's also the truth for some adopted people, and no matter how brutal and sad that is, it's the truth for some adopted people. The mother simply just doesn't want to have anything to do with you. Maybe she's so ashamed. Maybe she regrets so much that she gave you up for adoption. Maybe you are the result of a very, very brutal rape that she experienced when she was a teenager. And she simply just wants to forget that she ever carried you in her womb. And if that's the truth, then you also deserve to know that, because then you can move on with your life and you can let go of not knowing, because now you know, and then you can get peace. You can close that chapter and you can end the story. You can get an end to the story, and then you can move on with your life. And you can send love to her for giving birth to you, regardless of how much painful trauma and experiences that she had to go through in order to give birth to you and carry you for the 9 months. We're going to move on to the adoptive parents now. There can be a lot of tense energy, let me say like that, between the adoptee and the adoptive parents, and also maybe with the biological mother actually. It's a triasome, and there can be a lot of tensions between these three parts. Let's look at the adoptive parents' perspective. When they hear that you might want to contact your biological mother, some of the thoughts, common thoughts that adoptive parents they can think initially is they get afraid that they're going to lose you now because you're going to return to your biological family, and they get so anxious that they can't support you in this process, and they're going to project that fear onto you, and they're going to make you feel so wrong for wanting to contact your own biological family. And again, there's nothing wrong with wanting to contact your biological family. It's your family. You have every right to contact them if you want to. So whatever's going on in the two adoptive parents' head, you need to detach from that. You need to really, really remember this is where you end and this is where they begin. They need to deal with that themselves, and you can say that out loud, that you understand that they are afraid of losing you, and you can reassure them if you want that they're not going to lose you, and that what you want from them is their support. I think it'd be very beneficial if you express and articulate what you need from them in order to feel supported in this. There can also be a scenario where you simply don't want to involve them in the decision of wanting to get in contact with your biological mother, and that's fine. Then you just don't involve them, and you just go on with proceeding with that. You might also experience that your adoptive parents don't see the point of you meeting your biological mother because they don't see the value in meeting her like you do. And again, when we understand the perspective of the adoptive parents, the position they are in, a lot of adopted parents, not everyone, but a lot of them, they kind of like forget that you had another family before them. They kind of like get blinded because they are so absorbed in their own hopes and their own imagination and visualization of have creating this amazing family where you are their child. Because maybe if they were not able to have their own children by themselves, then the fact that they adopted you means everything to them, because maybe all they wanted was to be a family, and therefore they can't see the point of, what do you want with these people? We are your parents, we are your family, we are your mom and dad. But maybe you don't feel like that, and that's okay. And it's okay that they don't get it. It's not fun, but it's okay. But just know that whatever's going on over there with them, they need to deal with it. It's not your responsibility. You shouldn't feel wrong for the fact that they might not be able to support you. That's their problem. It's their problem. And I have heard a lot of adoptees come and tell me that when they told their adoptive parents, I'm gonna contact my biological mother, some of the things the adoptive parents could say to them that completely shamed them was, the adoptive parents, they said, if you are dragging us down into this, then we should also have dragged you down into our infertility issues and how painful it was that we were not able to create our own children and that we had to adopt you because it was the last option. So don't drag us down into your misery of wanting to go back to that family that rejected you in the first place. Like, some of these things, they just don't make sense. But I hope you can see with my example that the adoptive parents are talking from deep pain, deep hurt, deep pain, unresolved pain from not being able to make their own children, whatever it is. Deep pain, they're projecting that onto you. Because again, there's nothing wrong with wanting to reach out to your biological mother and biological family. There's nothing wrong with that. There is a last scenario. I saved the best till the end. The last and positive scenario is, maybe your adoptive parents are just going to support you tremendously when you are trying to find your biological mother and you're contacting them or contacting her. Maybe your adoptive parents are just amazing and they're going to support you, and I really, really hope that for you, because you deserve that. You don't deserve to also deal with their projection at all. So no matter what, I hope that you will make sure that someone is supporting you in this process. No matter what, I hope that you find someone who can support you in this process. It might not be your adoptive parents, then maybe it's an aunt, an uncle, friend, school teacher, whatever. Because maybe it can be an emotional roller coaster to go down this road and to find your biological mother and contact her. There are a lot of very, very existential and early memories, emotions that can be still suppressed within us. They can be activated when we are contacting them. And it doesn't mean that we shouldn't contact them at all. It's just to say that it can be a very emotional experience to do this. So having some kind of support next to you is very, very great. I highly recommend that. I think I covered most of what I wanted to cover. I feel like this was a long video. My throat is very dry now. And I hope that you got the answer you wanted from this video, and I did not get to cover everything, so there will be more. I'm gonna make another video another day about this as well. If you have any questions, leave a comment, and of course send this to a friend who might consider contacting their biological mother and who wants to understand a little bit of the 3 parts involved and different scenarios and reasons to why we act and say and think the way we do when we are considering contacting our biological mother. Until then, I'm sending you all my love and support, and I am still rooting for you. It hasn't changed. I'm still rooting for you, and I will see you in my next video. Bye for now.